All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Illini Audible Podcast. My name is Saeed Bravo. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the pod. As always, I really appreciate it. And we're back talking about Illinois football, and we're headed right into what is the most difficult, the most decorated, the most exciting, the biggest game of the season by far, and probably the biggest game in recent Illinois history. And it's the second time that Illinois has faced the top ranked college team in college football in the last 2 years. Obviously, they did that against Oregon at Oregon in Eugene last season, but this year they're taking on Ohio State. I think for the first time since 2020. I have to look, but it's the best team in college football. Illinois has its hands full, and it comes at a pivotal time where Illinois needs to clean up some issues, and this is certainly an opportunity for them, but not to get too lost in all of it. But it's exciting, right? Illinois fans should be, and it's going to be what, the third sellout crowd of the season, and it should be exciting for all of you guys. And Brett Bielema has appealed to the masses, has appealed to the fans, to you guys, to show up to pack Memorial Stadium, to make the atmosphere as euphoric as you can make it. And yeah, I mean, it from a student perspective, it's really cool to have not only the opportunity to see this in person, but to be a credentialed member of the media and do that in that way as well. But it's exciting, man. I mean, you think about the possibilities. It's college football at the end of the day. Really, anything could happen. Penn State went to UCLA and got clobbered, or they just lost the game, and they had the worst hiccup in probably the history of Penn State. And granted, that is hyperbolic. That is, I mean, that's exaggerating. The caliber of loss that was is pretty crazy, and it's hard to imagine something like that could happen to a team of caliber like Ohio State. But with that being said, the point still stands. It's college football. Anything can happen. Uh, you wonder what the chances are of Illinois actually pulling this off. And the last time they did it against Ohio State in 2007, I believe. So crazier things could happen, but it the point is that it is exciting, and you hope that all you want to see from Illinois in this game is that they can compete at that high level. Personally, I don't think Illinois can afford to get another loss like they did against Indiana. Granted, that was at Bloomington, but if you get embarrassed like that at home, you can kiss goodbye your college football chance. Now, there's a chance if you do win out the rest of the season 10-2. I mean, there is a chance, but you want to give the committee something to look at and say, yes, they did lose in this magnitude, in this awful way at Bloomington, but that was early in the season, and Indiana is one of these insane teams this season. It could just be that Indiana is that good. But listen, realistically, we'll see where this all ends up, but you just all you need from Illinois is to make it really competitive, especially given the fact that you're playing at home. We'll get into a couple of my keys to the game, but you hope that Illinois can make this thing competitive, especially because it's the second time Big Noon Kickoff is arrived to Champaign. It's the second time in 3 weeks. So they went from having no Big Noon Kickoff or any pregame show in Champaign previously ever to now two in the same year. And as a someone from Illinois, as an Illinois student, I think as a member of the media, you think that's pretty cool, and you hope that Illinois can justify that. You hope they did that against USC, but this is a whole nother beast as well. So yeah, let's get into a couple of the keys for this game because I mean, there are certainly a lot of things that Illinois needed to clean up this past week over the course of practice. And I think it's hard to learn a lot in season. Really, the only clues we get, the only breadcrumbs we ever get is through media availability. This week we had Joe Barna, Miles Scott, which I had a chance to be at. Obviously, coordinators and Brett Bielema, um, Corey Parker, and the offense. We had Kilo Valentine, who dropped a bomb about his uncle, who apparently his uncle is Joe Mixon. So that was interesting to take in because as far as I know, I don't think really that many people knew about that, and he just dropped that bomb. So that was cool, I guess. I mean, that could explain some of the avoidance of miscues and general like good standing that Khalil Valentine has had because that this is one of the guys we'll talk about. But I mean, he's been really, really good over the course of the past couple weeks, and his role will continue to climb. His prominence on this team will continue to rise as well. But let's talk a little bit about the issues, right? Because we all know that this is a juggernaut of a team, and we all know that Illinois has the opportunity to do something historic on Saturday. It's just about whether or not they can keep up and whether or not they can take advantage of this opportunity this particular year. You'd feel so much better if they had put up a good fight against Indiana. You feel confident if they had beaten Indiana, but that's not how the cookie crumbled. Injuries, simply bad play on the offensive line for a little bit. Now it's been better. Secondary issues and injuries as well on that side of the field. And then just a couple other things that you want to clean up. Otherwise, this Illinois team looks pretty clean, and you feel really, really good about where Illinois is heading towards this game. Another key thing is that it's for these guys, it's been a stretch of games. I mean, it's been a significant amount of football for collegiate football athletes, for NCAA Division I, Big Ten athletes, because at this point, a couple schools had already have a significant amount of Big Ten schools have already had their bye week. In some cases, their bye weeks. Illinois has not had one at all this week. Obviously, the bye week is coming up this week, which I should. Yes, it's coming up this week after the Ohio State game, but you certainly wonder whether or not, how fatigued this team is, and they're probably gasping for air at this point, needing some sort of break to recover, to get injured. I mean, Mac Resetis is one of those guys who barely had any reps at Purdue because of some lingering injury issues. Josh Kreutz was sidelined last week, but there's just going to be that. That's a part of football, and that's going to happen. Let's dive into the issues, my keys to the game that I want to take a look at and highlight throughout this podcast, and we'll see if Illinois is able to address them and play at Ohio State's level on Saturday. The biggest thing, the topic of conversation throughout the week in availability has been rightfully so missed tackles. Right? What can Illinois do to remedy that issue? Because it's certainly been a thing that you look at and you don't feel good about where the ship is heading when you're facing a team that has weapons everywhere. It's not looked good. It is not look good where the secondary just struggles to stop things. And yes, some of it is Xavier Scott was out. Mac Resetis is out. That is certainly a factor, but the younger guys need to be able to adjust and step up and be able to make those tackles. Listen, there's no question that missed tackles are going to happen in the game of football. That's what they've been telling us throughout this week. Yes, of course, it's going to happen. It's a matter of whether or not it looks like everybody's swarming to the ball. You can tell when the guys, there's been times this season, including where you look at it and you think, wow, this defense is vicious. Everybody is going towards the ball, jumping towards whoever has the ball, and it almost felt like, especially last week, you hadn't seen that, and so that raises concerns. But you hope that something, at least intangibly, is different about this week of practice. Now we don't know if that is. There needs to. I think that I'm a big believer in the idea that there needs to be a sense of urgency and just a little bit more fire on with weeks that you understand are gonna present you incredible challenges, such as this week. It'll be the same case when the players come back from their bye week and need to head up to Washington, and that's going to be a battle as well. But this is one of those cases where this is one of those weeks of practice. There needs to be something extra, understanding that the caliber of opponent that you have and the opportunity that you have in front of you. We don't know if that's been the case. We don't know if that's something that was emphasized or something that the players felt throughout the course of practice this week. The messaging is that nothing really changes, that the mentality, sure, the mentality could be a little different, but the only thing that really changes is the game plan. And you hope that the game plan is something that can materialize into production and a good product on the field next week. Now, I'll tell you something. Aaron Henry is going to have to call a hell of a game on Saturday. He's going to have to really, really, whatever schematics, whatever coverages he's going to call, his understanding of his personnel is going to be pivotal in this game. Understanding that this is one of those, of course, it's been this way throughout the course of the last 2 years, but understanding that it's a bend and not break defense. Throughout the past couple weeks, it's felt like more break than bend. So Aaron Henry's going to really have to step up in terms of calling one of the best games of his career. We'll see if he steps up to the moment. But that is one of my thoughts coming into this game, is that the personnel is what you have, and you're going to have to work with it. But good coaches elevate, and you hope to see that on Saturday. We'll see. Another thing I want to touch on that I forgot to really address last week after the post-game pod is the time management. I think Bret Bielema is one of the better coaches when it comes to this topic. Time management, I feel like throughout the past 2 seasons, 1 season and a half that I've been covering Bret Bielema and Illinois football in general, the time management has never been an issue. The weird thing about the Purdue game was that weird moment in that third quarter when it was like barely halfway through the third quarter, and Bret Bielema had already used all of his timeouts pretty much. That kind of thing cannot happen on Saturday. You make that mistake, the game is practically over, because I think that obviously depends on how the game kind of rolls out, especially in the first half. But if it's a close one in the third quarter and you make a mistake like that, you might as well say goodbye to any of your chances, because Ohio State might end up getting the ball back, or you might get the ball back to make a game-winning drive, but you barely have any time, and you can't really get anything done. That kind of thing cannot happen on Saturday. I'm sure it won't be repeated just because Bret Bielema is so good at this coaching gig, and he's been doing it for a long time. And I really do think that is probably just an outlier and a product of what, I don't know. And the thing is that I don't really think any of us asked about that. Maybe I missed something, but that's one of the keys as well. All right. Obviously, offensively, it's gonna be really hard, because it's not like Ohio State is just a powerhouse offense and that's it. Illinois is going to be faced with a pretty remarkable Ohio State defense. And it's going to be interesting how they kind of handle all of it, because they have really incredible talent all throughout, and they haven't been really, I'll say this. Ohio State hasn't totally been challenged throughout the entire season. Last week, they ended up, or 2 weeks ago, however long ago that was, maybe 3 weeks ago now at this point, they ended up going to Washington. And that game looks a little bit. Ohio State scored a touchdown late in the fourth quarter or late in the second half. That made it look more uneven than it actually was. But you look at their schedule, and outside of Texas, which has largely looked uh, disappointing, and Texas is now unranked, you think that you start reevaluating this schedule. This is pretty much Illinois' or Ohio State's toughest challenge to date. I mean, you look at their incoming schedule, and even with Penn State coming to them in November 1st, the outside looking in, people think that Penn State isn't that now is unranked, or Penn State is no longer ranked, obviously, like what we had talked about. But I still think Penn State is pretty good. Now, granted, how good are they now because of that? I think that that's a huge blemish on the resume, but still, they're probably their toughest challenge is going to be rivalry week. Their toughest challenge left on the schedule on paper is rivalry week, the last game of the season against Michigan, and that's going to be in Ann Arbor, and that's always euphoric. That is always an incredible atmosphere. So this is an incredibly important game for Ohio State as well, and I think that's important to remember. I do think it's going to be closer than people expect. And I set this in my score prediction for Inquirer.com, but I I don't like to traffic in the world of delusion. I hope I never do. I think there is a world where Illinois can beat Ohio State. The thing is, I don't think that is this world. I feel so much better about picking Illinois if I picked Illinois, if the tackling wasn't an issue, if maybe Illinois had Xavier Scott, if the offensive line had looked consistent throughout the season. Unfortunately, that just hasn't been the case. Ohio State is too talented to lose this game. I'm a big believer in the idea that every championship caliber team will have its hiccups. Maybe not to the level that Penn State historic crapping of the bed had in store for themselves at UCLA a couple weeks ago. But I don't think Ohio State goes the season undefeated. I'm a big believer in the idea that every championship caliber team has its hiccups. Unfortunately, I don't think that hiccup is going to occur at this game, especially because Penn State is coming into this as well, understanding the caliber of challenge. It's not like they're discounting anybody. I would point to maybe some other game that they overlook. And maybe when you're going through that lull in the season where Ohio State is going to have to kind of just scroll throughout the entire rest of the schedule, then yes, then I could see that as being something that where Ohio State can let up and maybe they do allow for something, a comeback or something against their opponent. But for now, I don't see that happening with Illinois. Listen, it's good when Illinois wins. Everybody's happy. It's good for us. It's good for the fans. It's good for it's good for you guys. It's good for everybody. I hope Illinois can pull through. Right now, I just don't see that happening because of what we've seen from the defense, because of what they're going to face on the defensive line against Ohio State, what the old line has. We don't even know if Josh Kreutz is going to play this game, which, to be honest, TJ McMillan held his own against Purdue. That's a whole nother thing when TJ McMillan is going to make his second start at center, facing one of the best lines, one of the best trenches in college football. We'll see. It'll be exciting. I expect the environment to be euphoric. I expect it to be cool. I expect it to be awesome. I expect this game to be closer than whatever the Indiana fiasco was. There's no question about that. I think Illinois puts up a good fight. And a lot of that is because of maybe the intangibles. Call me a delusion. like I said, I don't like to traffic in the world of delusion. That's why I won't ever pick Illinois for this game. I can't. It goes against my principles. But you can have fun with this. I think that Illinois will put up a good fight. And if Illinois can put up a good fight and stay in it as you enter the fourth quarter, anything can happen. So we'll see. We'll see. You just hope that they don't crap the bed. We'll see. And with that, thanks so much for this. Just want to pop in and talk a little bit about this Ohio State game that is seismic and huge in terms of its consequence for the rest of the season. We'll see how everything goes. And subscribe, rate, review, please. It helps a lot. I thank you to everybody who's clicked on any one of these podcasts, whether on YouTube, audio version. I want to express my gratitude so much because I just do these for the reps, for experience, for fun, and I've had a blast. And I thank everybody who's, you know, chosen to peek into my world, who's chosen to click on my podcast, just listen to what I have to say. I really appreciate it. So with that being said, peace.